Traveling to another dimension this time. Not of sight and sound, but of mind. But they're all about mind, aren't they? Isn't my podcast about what's going on in my head? Yeah, and what's going on in my head is what I feed my head. And our next stop is the Twilight Zone because I read The Best of Richard Matheson. Richard Matheson, you say? Question mark? You know who Richard Matheson is. Even if you don't know the name, you know the work of Richard Matheson. Some of these works are, in fact, in this very book. We have a lot of stories in this book. Many of the stories are not really very long. So it's how many stories are there? God, there's a whole lot of them. You can see there's a whole bunch of stories there, and there's some stories over here. So that, they're like a few pages long mostly. They're not long. Yeah. So these are all going on, from the 1950 into 1980 or so into the 2000s, I guess. So yeah, there are a lot of stories that we know because many of them were adapted to the Twilight Zone as well as other places. Like Big Surprise is one of them in here. Big Surprise. Big surprise. You want a big surprise? Hey, fellas. Hey, lads. You want a big surprise? Go dig a hole 10 paces over from there and 5 paces over from there, 10 feet deep, and you'll get a big surprise. Did you ever see that one? That one is not a Twilight Zone. That one was on Night Gallery. Night Gallery? Night Gallery was a not so great NBC Twilight Zone sort of thing where they controlled it and Rod Serling did not control it. And anyway, Big Surprise was featured in that. It's very short. It's probably on YouTube somewhere. John Carradine plays the old man and plays it very well. Actually, it's a really good one. It's kind of a joke. And some of them, some of these stories are kind of, they kind of joke like you're going along and some sort of a surprise ending, that kind of a thing. So yeah, so we got Big Surprise in there. What other ones that are stand out? Prey. Prey was also not a Twilight Zone. It was a TV movie of, I think, 3 Matheson stories that were put into, I think it was a TV movie. Anyway, Karen Black is chased around in Prey by this little, I don't know what, an African fetish doll that she's going to give to her boyfriend who's into, African stuff. And so it chases her around and cuts her up and stuff like that. So that one just doesn't work for me. The story is not very good, and the adaptation is horrible. And I don't like that story. I don't like ladies. I don't like ladies chased around stories. Are just too easy, too pat. So what other ones in here? Oh, Button Button. Now Button Button is really good. Button Button is where a guy comes and he's got this box with a button on the top, and you have this key or something that opens it. And he says, if you press the button, someone will die, but you will receive $50,000. But you won't know the person that dies. So the husband and wife consider this. This is set in New York City. Many of these are set in New York City because he grew up in Brooklyn. So, back to Button Button. So, and that one is a Twilight Zone, I think. So they decide they don't want to do that. It actually has Adam and Eve stuff mixed up in this because the wife kind of gets greedy on her own while the husband's not there, and she goes and decides to push the button, and the results are not expected, but it's somebody who she doesn't know that she thinks she knows. So that's the little coda joke at the end of that one. So yeah, that's a good one. I really like that one. A lot of these I forgot what they were already. Duel, Duel is in here. Duel was a Steven Spielberg's first movie, which was written by Richard Matheson, and it starred what's his name, Chester on Gunsmoke, McLeod, that actor. Anyway, it's a highway road rage sort of thing where a trucker is chasing around somebody in a car on a trip. So that's Duel. That one's okay. Like, whatever. People with cars. Yeah, okay. So it's pretty. Nightmare at 20,000 feet. Well, that's a pretty famous story. That's kind of one of the most famous stories of the Twilight Zone original. And it's also featured in the Twilight Zone movie, the ill-fated Twilight Zone movie. And actually, I saw another version of this because it's credited. I wouldn't have thought of it as being 20,000 feet, really. But I watched an episode just a few days ago. I was cat sitting in on, I think, Amazon Prime. They have Twilight Zone, the one from 6 years ago. So that was on CBS because CBS owns the Twilight Zone, so they can reboot Twilight Zone as much as they want. Um, so that one had Adam Scott as the nervous flyer at 20,000 feet, and it was much, much different in a lot of ways. But it's said based on that. But yeah, so 20,000 feet. That's the one with William Shatner in the episode, famously so, where the guy's sitting on the wing and he's seeing somebody out there messing with the engine. So air flight panic, which I don't have an air flight panic. I don't like to do it because of the business. Oddly, my mother died in an airplane accident, but it was a little plane, only a 2-engine plane. So, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't lead me to be that concerned about that. Yeah, big surprise I already talked about. Mute was kind of an interesting story about this mute kid. And his parents die, I guess, in a fire, and they can't figure out why he's mute, and so that was kind of interesting. Yeah, Shockwave, the Conqueror. No such thing as a vampire. I'm I'm not into vampire stories at all. I don't really dig the vampire thing. I guess it's because it has like a religious thing, like, with the crosses and all that, and the evil and all that sort of religious stuff that's on top of the vampire stories that really, are kind of central to it. I just don't buy into that stuff. So, vampires. Vampires don't do me, although, I know that people are emotional vampires. I'm probably kind of an old vampire as well myself, since I've had relationships with people who are many years younger all through my life. You want to be my friend? Look into my eyes. You are getting sleepy. You love me. Don't you love me? Of course you love me. I know you do. You know you do. Let me suck your blood. Yeah, that kind of thing. So, yeah, Richard Matheson stories. These are pretty good. It was kind of a stopgap. I didn't know what to read. I'm kind of waiting for the library to get Cory Doctorow's new book, the Hench crime novels, Picks and Shovels, which I wish would show up at the library soon so I can read it. Because I've started this right wing idiotic book called Unhumans, sort of as another stopgap. I have something on my Kindle I really want to read, another Andrea Newman, so which I just talked about in the previous thing. So yeah, Best of Richard Matheson is a pretty good read. I liked it. You know, I liked that the short stories were short, and here you can listen to it. There, isn't that great? And the stories were short, and you know they're pretty cool. You know, not a lot of dumb crap in them. A lot of pretty cool crap. The vampire story ended up really good. I thought. This guy is like panicking because his wife is being bitten at the night, and then he's kind of being bitten too. So everybody in the town is worried about vampires. And it turns out to be this whole other story about a cuckold, the a revenge of a cuckolded husband. So that was a pretty good result of that one, which is a slight spoiler, I guess, but. Whatever. You gonna really read this? Yeah, maybe you will. So anyway, I look at some of the other names. I don't remember what they were about. So I think that's all. I kind of wanted to do songs that are related to the books, like, but that's a slow process. It's so I'm not gonna be able to record a song because I want it to be kind of good. I mean, I realize that my music is really kind of outsider artist. I'm an old man who makes these sort of musical pieces sometimes, but they're not like professional. I'm like Grandma Moses. My art is not really doesn't have the depth that of other people. It doesn't have the technique and the depth and the money behind it all. So outsider art. But yeah, so I found that it's a little too much pressure for me, and I don't like pressure. Ugh, ugh. And it's too much trouble to write songs about. And I could have written this song about button, button, who's got the button? Button, press the button, and someone will die. Something like that. But I didn't. So anyway, there'll probably be more of the song and productions because I like to make productions out of it. I want to be like Todd Rundgren or Nelson Riddle or something. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll probably show up here again. And if you show up as well, we will converge in this spot, and what goes on in my head will be transferred by magic and electronics into your brain somehow. Somebody's ringing the doorbell. It's probably just somebody trying to get in from Amazon or something. I'm not expecting anything. And my landlady is out at the moment, so thank you for watching.